Okay, welcome everyone to the Appalachian Liturgy Top 5. I am Justin Stacy.
I'm Brooke Ashley.
And I'm Justin Bolling.
And before we get started tonight, so some more housekeeping. Wanted to make sure everyone knows that our website is up, and at AppalachianLiturgy.com you can find our store. We have T-shirts. Right now, it is still the Easter white vestment colors for the T-shirts. I realize that Pentecost is just one day, so it's going to be really hard to actually do red for one day, and that doesn't make any sense. So I think what I'm going to do is wait to ordinary time and do green, and then on Holy Week next year we will do red. So it's going to be a long time before we actually have red. So that's I guess the update there. Also, give our videos like, subscribe to our channels, and tell people about us. Leave us a comment, send us an email. Let us know how we're doing. All right. So enough of that. So to our top 5.
Appalachian Liturgy Top 5 Debate.
Okay, so tonight our top 5 is going to be top 5 classic cartoons, I guess pre-1990's edition. We could probably do multiple editions of classic cartoons, but I figured that we need. Well, I know, Brooke, you were asking me to define it because my classic may not be the same as Bolling, may not be the same as yours. So we needed to kind of define it. So pre-1990's, I think we were all still watching cartoons. I was toddler.
Shut up.
As was Bolling.
Oh.
But a lot of these shows were reruns when we were growing up, and so
I'll just have to say that most of the ones on my top 5 were also reruns. I just want to say that. I mean, I am the old woman of the group, but just saying that some of these were way before my time even. So
wow, okay.
I know. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
Duly noted.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I hear you. Dog
No.
house.
That reminds me of a story. I was my oldest daughter had asked me if babies really only see in black and white when they were born, because they were curious if our youngest could only see in black and white. And I was like, I think I've heard that before. And we looked it up, and sure enough, it was true. And then the middle one goes, oh, wow, just like back in the olden days. I was like, you don't think that everything was in black and white back in the old days, do you? And she certainly did. So some of these old classic cartoons were really showing how the world was if you were in black and white.
Wow.
Oh, Lord.
That's amazing.
But that was appropriate for the classic cartoon.
Yeah. All right. Want me to go first?
I just want to say before we get started, this was really hard.
It was.
It was. It
like,
was.
I mean, I don't know if you can see my list, but like this was narrowed down.
Yeah, you had to process elimination. Yeah, I have a lot of honorable mentions.
I have 3 groups. Yeah.
Yeah, and
I had tears in my honorable mentions.
The top 5, I had to. I got the top 5 pretty quickly. I just had to keep reordering the number because I could not come up with. I like the. Honestly, I think I like these all as much equal, basically. But I had to give them a number, so I did. All right.
It's not like you're ranking your kids or something like that. I love all my kids equally, but I had to pick my favorite.
That's right. That's right. Okay. I guess I'll start it off. So my number 5 is Garfield and Friends. That started in the 88, 89, I think. And it was one of my favorite cartoons when I was, 4 or 5 years old. I remember most of my Christmas gifts was something Garfield related. My Aunt Melissa, she's a really good artist, and she actually drew Garfield on different areas of our high school. So you can go, and it's probably painted over now, but at the time, like, you could go and see different pictures of Garfield, and she did that. And it may be that she's the one who got me into Garfield. I'm not sure,
So,
but she
was
was
lasagna
pretty.
like your favorite meal?
My
Hated
lasagna is
Mondays.
still my favorite meal. Honestly, it was my favorite meal growing up. I didn't even make that connection until you just said that. I think it was some kind of, lasagna was always my favorite meal, and I think it had to be related to Garfield. It's just that fond memory of Garfield. So, yeah.
I liked Garfield. I always felt bad for Odie though, because I'm more of a dog person. He got forward picked on.
He sure did.
Oh.
And honestly, even the show itself, making him not be able to talk and kind of dumb, like that was a kind of a sticking to dogs. I think. Like I think that show was very pro cat. Garfield was very smart. But it's all in fun. Also, my light bar that I haven't set up yet, I've got Garfield sheets for that. So at some point, hopefully, I will have that set up in view. Okay, enough of my number 5. On to my number 4. And this one is definitely controversial for me being at number 4 because it could easily be my number 2. It could easily be my number 3. Probably not my number 1. And that's the Jetsons.
Ooh.
And it's my number 4. I loved the Jetsons. Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, probably one of my favorite kids' movies. I can remember going to Denny's, and when they would have the Hanna-Barbera different little toys, and I remember getting a Jetsons the flying car, and I think the only thing that I'm aware of that I ever stole from a store was a Jetsons car, and
Turning you in.
yeah, and it was from like a Super Dollar, a Super Family Dollar. I don't remember. It was one of those dollar stores from back in the day, and I remember and I was probably about 5 years old, maybe, and I put it. What I did is I put it in my jacket pocket, and just forgot about it, and ended up getting home with it without paying for it. And I remember realizing what I'd done and telling Mom about it, and I cried. Like I was so scared that I was in trouble, type thing. So obviously knew stealing was wrong, but and Mom, I think, just went and paid for it or whatever. I'm interested to see if she remembers this because I can remember this vividly. That this was my first criminal record was when I was like 5 and I stole a Jetsons car. So my number 3 was on another list, the last top 5 we did, and that's Popeye. And I've talked it up enough, I think, but it was definitely one of my favorite cartoons. I also think Full House kind of reiterated that, because if you remember, Joey Gladstone was obsessed with Popeye too. And so, I think my fandom kept up in my later years because of Full House as well, because I was a big fan of Full House. My number 2, this could actually easily be my number 1, and it was my number 1 for about 10 minutes, and then I switched it. And that is the Smurfs. And so I was a big Smurfs fan, and I think the only reason why I wouldn't rank it my number 1 is because it didn't last as long. It didn't have as many seasons as what my number 1 did. So I didn't get to watch it as much. But, the Smurfs is iconic. Some of the later movies has not been as great, but, I actually have one of those huge, almost life-size, it would be more than life-size for Smurf size, but it's, probably half the size of me, stuffed animal Smurfs in my basement. So yeah, I still collect Smurfs quite a bit. So my number 1 is the Flintstones. And that is the show that I've watched the most of, the show that I will still watch if I find it on. The show that I probably had the most stuff of, Fruity Pebbles. We've already been through that. It was my favorite cereal. I can remember my parents taking me to what was it? What was that theme park that had like Hanna-Barbera stuff? Was it Kings Island? Yeah, I think it's Kings.
I think did.
Yeah. Kings Island. or King's Dominion. It was one of the two. And they had, the Hanna-Barbera stuff, but they had a lot of Flintstone stuff. And there were some pictures of me in the Flintstones car and all this stuff. Just fond memories when I was a kid. So absolutely loved Flintstones. I also love the Flintstones movie. That movie with that came out in the early '90s with what's his name that played Dan in Roseanne.
Goodman.
John Goodman. Yeah, that was a good movie. I really enjoy it. I still like it. That's my list. Honorable mentions. I did have a few of these. Let's see. Gumby is in my honorable mentions just because I don't feel like it's a cartoon.
I was wondering if that was going to make
claymation.
Yeah.
Yeah. I eliminated it from the list just because it's claymation, and I didn't know if it should be on a cartoon list or not. But if it was, it would probably be my number 1 or 2.
1.5.
Like, yeah, 1.5. Like it is really up there. And that was one that I was watching when I was like 1 and 2 and 3 years old. Really young. And let's see, Scooby-Doo is in my honorable mentions. I watched a lot of that. Yeah, I can't think of any more, but there should be some more. Basically, insert any Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Those, yeah.
The Wacky Races, all of those.
Love Wacky Races,
I watched all of that, and Hanna-Barbera is still my favorite type of cartoon that there is. Okay, enough of me. Enough of my ranting. Someone else go.
All right, I'll power through mine then. So, starting at number 5 with your number 1, since it's a good place to leave off, I had the Flintstones. I did have a hard time choosing. Flintstones and Jetsons were both 2 shows I watched a whole lot, and but not enough to like really particularly like love so much that I would seek them out or something. And the Flintstones was the one I watched the most out of both of those, so they kind of were both right there at the bottom of my list. Jetsons got booted out to the honorable mention. Flintstones made it in. So spoiler alert: there's no Jetsons going to be on my list. Number 4, maybe kind of a controversial one, just because of it's more of a collection of things rather than a single one. But I just put Looney Tunes there, grouped them all together into a singular show.
Yeah, that was my problem with Looney Tunes. Is like there's definitely specific ones that I like better than the other ones. Foghorn Leghorn, that was actually one I meant to mention in my honorable mentions because my grandpa Bob, that was his favorite cartoon that we watched together.
Yeah.
But I couldn't detangle them, so I just didn't. I left them off.
I would have been close to putting it, like Bugs Bunny by himself there somewhere on the list with that, but being able to group them together, it definitely made number 4 on my list, because I still like the Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, all those were.
We could have a top 5 Looney Tunes, honestly. Yeah.
But I grouped those together, put it at number 4. Number 3, I went for Popeye, and this was starting to get into the ones to where it's like really things that I've had a huge interest in. Like Popeye, I used to make my mom get the spinach, with the Popeye on it. That was the only spinach I would ever eat. I would, eat it, walk around the house.
I would never eat it, but I wanted to have the can.
I would eat it. I would eat it cold too. I was just
walk around like I got cold.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Oh Lord, talk about marketing work. Oh my gosh.
I still eat spinach. Well, I eat about anything to this day, so it's not really anything surprising. But number 2, it kind of got on the list of barely being in the 80s, I guess. There was a couple that technically started in the 80s, I think like 89, that I didn't put on the list because it was like it started in like, July of 89, and that felt wrong if we're doing pre-1990s. But for number 2, oh, you must have done one, Brooke, with you laughing.
I'm just thinking about the thought that you put into this. And,
I did. Number 2, though, I went with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was a huge Turtles fan. Leonardo, I had 14 costumes of him, dress up with the blue headband, walk around, get my sister with a sword, all this stuff. Yeah.
My favorite Ninja Turtle was Donatello, the purple.
Yeah, my neighbor was a huge Donatello fan. My sister would dress up as Raphael, and we never had a Michelangelo though, which is odd. Did you ever watch one of the most favorite? Did
you ever watch Street Sharks and all of the copycats? I
watched the copycats. Street Sharks. It's like the copycat Smurfs. What was the underwater
Snorks.
people? Snorks.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was talking to Renee about my top 5, she's like, "Why is the Snorks not on there?" I was like, "Because it's a copycat of Smurfs. Why would
It's a
Why would
Smurfs,
it be
but
on
worse.
there?"
And number 1, I rounded out with Scooby-Doo, which you didn't make your list, but it was definitely my favorite cartoon. I watched Scooby-Doo all the flipping time and watched it like well into my teenage years. I've seen probably every single episode multiple times, and if I catch it on, I'll still watch it. But yeah, Scooby-Doo is absolutely my favorite.
What I loved about Scooby-Doo is all the guest appearances.
Yeah, you start getting Casey Kasem.
The cameos.
Yeah.
Well, Casey Kasem did the voice of Shaggy's, but he also was a guest on the show.
Yes.
And then you had the Harlem Globetrotters was on every other episode, it seemed like.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
All right, Brooke.
So any honorable mentions? Or did you just go with the top 5?
No, I have plenty of honorable mentions. So I guess the two that started in like '89 that would have probably been on my list if I would have allowed them was Dragon Ball Z started in Japan in 1989, and I love Dragon Ball Z, especially during my teenage years. But I obviously didn't watch it to probably 2000 or something like that, so that felt really cheating. And then the Simpsons were very similar. They started in 1989 as well, and I don't think of it as a pre-90's cartoon. That's definitely more 90s and on. But Tom and Jerry was up there for me. Inspector Gadget is one I really loved, but I don't think it can knock out any of the top 5. It was.
I didn't realize that one was pre-90s.
It was.
Wow.
And so was Super Friends. I'm not even a big comic book person. I've watched all the Marvel
I watched
stuff,
a lot of Super Friends.
I loved Super Friends. Yeah.
You know what else I loved to watch was Space Ghost Coast to Coast.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was really, really good.
But yeah, I had tons of honorable mentions, but that's kind of the ones that were in my top grouping of honorable mentions.
Awesome.
Yeah, so my top 5, number 5 was Scooby-Doo. And I'll just have to say that we did this over dinner with the family talking about, because my kids are grown, so they've kind of done this, and I had a long conversation about pre-90s, what would be pre-90s and what wasn't. But so Scooby-Doo was number 5. Number 4 was Inspector Gadget. Inspector Gadget.
Great theme song.
Yeah, awesome. We decided that Looney Tunes had to be on the list. It's just iconic and classic. So Looney Tunes came in at 3.
Okay.
And 2 was Tom and Jerry.
Oh wow. Okay.
And my number 1 was the Flintstones. So
very good.
And then I had some honorable mention. I kind of had like that were a step above honorable mention, but just couldn't quite do the top 5. And one of those was Schoolhouse Rocks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Jetsons and the Smurfs.
Mm-hmm.
So loved them both, but those aren't necessarily cartoons that if they came on now would grab my attention and hold it for very long.
Yeah.
But the others kind of did. So that's kind of where I differentiated between honorable mentions. And Super Friends and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was on the next rung of honorable mentions. So that's kind of what.
Very good.
We had a lot of overlap there. Yeah.
We did.
Bolling, did you have Flintstones on your list or no?
It was my number 5. Yeah.
It was your number 5. Yeah. Okay.
I debated between it and the Jetsons as kind of my last one.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is it is almost hard to decouple the Jetsons from the Flintstones in my mind.
One was futuristic and one was past. I mean, the storylines are almost. I mean, they're so similar.
Right. And what's really interesting about that is I felt like they were always on at the same time, but it's because I was watching reruns and they were always on at the same time. But when they first aired, the Flintstones, started in the 60s, and as did the Jetsons. But the Flintstones, they kind of they made it the entire time. The Jetsons made it one season, and then it flopped after the first season. And then in the 80s, it picked back up. They picked up doing new seasons. So most of the episodes that you watch is from the 80s, not from the earlier first season of the 60s. Yeah, it's pretty interesting when I read that.
So I wonder if we're going to get any flack about political correctness, because when you go back and watch some of these cartoons, some of these are bad. I mean, you're like, that would never fly today. Like
Looney Tunes obviously is fixing it themselves. Like they're making new Looney Tunes on HBO Max, and they are changing a lot of things. Like Elmer Fudd, I think doesn't use a gun anymore. Which I actually have a problem with that. Like I feel like that is just,
Okay, so we
I
just
understand the
had
gun
Aaron and I-
violence thing, but
we just had this crazy conversation, and he was listening to another podcast. What was the name that Elmer Fudd was called? That it was kind of it became a derogatory name. Do you remember?
Yeah, because it made him sound stupid, but it actually didn't mean stupid. He just
Right. It actually meant like great hunter, and now
Yeah.
we use it as a derogatory term because of the Looney
Yeah.
Tunes.
mm,
Oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're talking about. and I can't think of it.
I don't know exactly.
I know it's gonna kill me. Like I'm gonna Google it.
That's what I was about to say.
I'm Googling Elmer Fudd derogatory. I can't spell.
I can't find it either. Nimrod.
Nimrod.
Ah,
Yes.
Mhm,
And
'cause it's a biblical
Nimrod
name. Yeah.
means great hunter.
Yeah.
And
Because he's a great
now-
hunter in the Bible.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now we use Nimrod as an
You
idiot.
Nimrod.
or-
mhm.
yeah. So I think we think of cartoons as being childish and
Right. There's a lot of adult
Children-
things in there.
yeah, and it's so Bolling, you've not got to experience this yet, but as we go back and watch Disney movies or cartoons or whatever with our adult children now, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you let us watch these!" And I was like, "Well,
You didn't get them.
yeah, it was over your head, like you didn't get them. Cartoons are not child's play."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shrek's, I think, is one of the perfect examples of that. It has a lot of adult jokes in it, but the kids don't exactly get until they're a little bit older.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
and
you can see them watching and be like, "Oh,
I honestly believe there was no worse in terms of implementing adult themes into cartoons than 90s cartoons.
yes, I agree."
That was over the top. Ren and Stimpy, watch that. Like I struggle watching it now. Like
Yeah,
I was like,
that wasn't
how
subtle.
on earth was I ever allowed to watch this?
Beavis and Butthead didn't make any of our lists, but I guess that was
No.
90s.
It was. Well, it may have been
Yeah,
80s
It had
actually.
to be 90s, wasn't it?
It was definitely 90s, but it could have started in the 80s. I liked Beavis and Butthead only because it was controversial and you weren't supposed to like it type thing. But I don't find that funny at all now.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't find it funny. Here's what I do find funny. So y'all know Abby. Her roommate's last name is Beavis.
Uh,
And so they get a lot of, well, if she's Beavis, you must be
She's
Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Never was a huge fan of Beavis and Butthead. But I was a huge fan of King of the Hill, which is the same creator. And King of the Hill is probably one of my favorite cartoons of all time. Adult cartoons, that is.
Yeah, King of the Hill's, I think, a lot wittier than Beavis
Yeah.
and Butthead.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those that it's an adult cartoon, but I think it's safe enough for kids as well. There's a lot of adult themes that kids actually would be educated in watching King of the Hill, I think. So
Yeah,
That's
they can learn about
probably
propane and
another-
propane accessories.
that's right. You need to know about it. Dang it, Bobby. and then the self defense. When Bobby's taught self
That's my
defense,
purse.
that's my purse. I don't know you.
See, this is going over my head because this was just not my thing.
That's right. That would have been after your time, I guess, of watching cartoons.
I didn't watch King of the Hill. until I
we
was
watch
an adult.
cartoons a lot, but yeah, I think I was in college, maybe.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly, if you ever get bored, I think you'd probably like it. Like it's
Probably.
it's pretty good. We could probably do a top 5 adult cartoons as well. All right, so let's do a final list here.
So I think
So
we
I know
have
Flintstones will repeat, so Flintstones will be on the list. Scooby-Doo was 2 out of 3, and it was in my honorable mentions. So I guess Scooby-Doo is going to be there. Looney Tunes, it was on 2 of the 3. So that's 3 of them. What else did we have? Popeye. Popeye was on.
Appear in multiple. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles appear in multiple.
Yeah.
Jetsons appear in multiple.
Jetsons was it in your top 5, Bolling?
No, it was. I didn't make my. It didn't make my top 5, but was the.
It didn't make Brooks either, so I don't think Jetsons.
Oh, never mind.
Cut it. I mean,
we have 2 Popeyes though, so I think that has.
We do have 2 Popeyes, and we do have 2 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I mean, the fact, Bolling, that you ate cold spinach.
Oh, I did. Yeah.
Because of Popeye. I mean,
yeah.
I think it just vaults that into the top 5. I mean,
That's
if
right.
it had that much impact on your life, oh my gosh.
It sent me down a path of healthy eating.
And here is my Popeye bobblehead that I got last month. So I think Popeye should definitely be on the list. And, maybe Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I would not complain.
Yeah. So funny thing about Popeye, Abby and I don't really like Popeye at all. And do you know why?
Why?
Because olive oil always has to be rescued.
Yeah. I mean, again, going back with like the political correctness thing, like it's not the most
but it's funny. So
endearing for women, I guess. Like it is always a damsel in distress episode. But that thing was made in the 20s. That's when it started, right?
At the time, it was,
that's what it was. It was just a lot of stereotypes, and I understand when you know better, you should do better. But also, I guess touching again on cancel culture, if there was a push to cancel Popeye, I would be mad about that.
To be my own devil's advocate with that, do we not want people to rescue each other? I mean, yeah. Honestly, I know that we get all caught up on the gender role thing, but the premise behind that, the real message behind that is there are mean people and there are good people, and we need to stand up for what's good. And so,
right.
But yeah.
I think that's one really good thing about the comic books, superhero related. They've always been really above the curve with the culture. So it's like, they were doing storylines, especially with Wonder Woman, to create this superhero woman, and Super Friends would have been right along in that category. So that's what I appreciate about comic books is they were always able to, like the X-Men was basically, about segregation. That was sort of the brainchild, the brainstorm of what X-Men was supposed to be.
So it's kind of like the preacher trick, like, you can say things in the children's sermon that you can't say in the real sermon.
Yeah.
Because it's okay to say it kind of to kids, but that the adults are listening too. So, But anyway, so what's our top 5?
So our top 5 is the Flintstones, Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Popeye. That's our 5. That's pretty.
That.
That's right. It's a pretty good list.
There's some TV material for anybody. Yeah.
Take it apart.
Well, we were strong to the finish because we eat our spinach.
There you go.
Popeye the Sailor Man. I should have been dressed up. Like I got the costume. Right. All right. Well, this was really fun. I knew it would be. I love talking about childhood and cartoons and all. Makes me happy going back to revisit those times. Okay, well, that will be it. So, in the words of the great philosopher Porky J. Pig, eat, maneep, maneep, maneep. That's all, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really hope you got some enjoyment out of the podcast this week. Remember to check out our website, www.appalachianliturgy.com, and follow us on all of our social medias. If you want an easy way to support us, though, make sure to subscribe to our channels and like our videos on YouTube. Also, join our email list for updates and let us know how we're doing. See you next week, everyone. Appalachian Liturgy Podcast is a JRS Studios production.